Hi everyone. Today we're going to be doing one thing and one thing only, which is responding not just to Bro Science in their recent video, Do You Have Good Genes or Are You Racist? We'll also be applying a concept that they say themselves in their video to a recent essay that I wrote, specifically, White Moderates Still Don't Challenge Fascism, R.E. Me vis-a-vis Solomon Nelson versus Mike Israetel and Both Men's Racism. So this essay is a piece that I wrote on October 12th, and the video by Bro Science came out last night, but it's something that jives with arguments that I was making when critiquing Solomon Nelson in this essay as a whole. So what we'll do first is we will watch the clip by Bro Science, we'll cover my initial response to it, and then we'll read the update to this essay in particular. There's quite a bit of information to go over, but I've scripted it in such a way that we should be able to go through not just the timetable, but all of the individual sources that I cite as well. And we'll go over all of them just to show you that, yes, they exist. We'll go over the timetable. We'll go over any of the visual aids, YouTube videos, email and Discord communications, any relevant evidence that I provide when making my argument that Solomon Nelson essentially got outmaneuvered by Bro Science in regards to speaking out about racism in the fitness industry, in the bodybuilder community. So first things first, I am someone who has been involved in following bodybuilding content for a long time, not just in the age of the internet, but actually before the internet. When I was a little girl growing up in the 90s, I really liked Arnold Schwarzenegger. I liked him in the Terminator movies. I liked him in Conan the Barbarian. I even liked him in Red Sonja. So I was really into bodybuilding and, really masculine heroes and heroines, incidentally, Amazons. So I was really into bodybuilding as a result from a young age onwards. Leading into the internet, I became aware of different content creators that would talk about bodybuilding online, specifically on YouTube. And one of the earliest examples that I can remember is Bro Science. And Dom is someone that I've followed for a long time. This specific video came up in my feed, and I was like, oh, it's Dom. Oh, he's talking about that topic, something that I'm in the middle of researching. R.E., Solomon Nelson, Mike Israetel. As I was watching it, there was this one specific section here at 420 where he says something that I just pointed at the monitor and I'm like, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dom. You get it. So this is what Dom said.
In fact, denying racism exists is racist.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot agree more. And the reason I got really excited was because Solomon Nelson, by refusing to talk about racism, what they call a lie of omission, especially when so much information is available about Mike Israetel, and the fact that Solomon Nelson is someone who, as we'll see, has discussed race science before by discrediting it, but refusing to discredit it now and only focus on very specific things regarding Mike Israetel, someone who is an open race scientist, someone that Solomon has spared from that particular degree of criticism. He refuses to talk about it. And this is something that I've discussed before in my essay, White Moderates Still Don't Challenge Fascism, where I mention that Solomon is someone who refuses to talk about Mike Israetel's racism. Therefore, according to my logic, but also Dom Mazzetti's logic, making both men racist. Keeping that in mind, I got very excited and I responded, yo, Solomon Nelson, if Bro Science can talk about racism in the fitness industry, why oh why can't you? Edit, denying racism exists is racist. Yes, Dom gets it, with a timestamp to the specific point in the video where Dom says the thing. So, keeping all of that in mind, I decided that I would revisit my essay, White Moderates Still Don't Challenge Fascism, and I would include a portion dedicated to Bro Science and their recent video, tying it to Solomon Nelson and his own denying of racism by refusing to talk about it at all. Here's the essay that we'll be looking at. We'll be going over the portions, the new portions that I've included, specifically the addendum here, update 10/23/2025. Follow-up, white moderates still don't challenge fascism. R.E. Me vis-a-vis Solomon Nelson versus Mike Israetel, and both men's racism. Originally written October 12, 2025. This short follow-up essay, specifically to a past critique of Solomon Nelson I wrote called White Moderates Don't Challenge Fascism, covers the controversies currently unfolding between him and Mike Israetel, how Solomon recently investigated Mike's PhD and found it to be charitable to Mike, incredibly wanting. Comments about Mike's dearth of academic rigor aside, the purpose of this piece and its companion video is to weigh in both on Solomon's legitimate criticism of Mike, but also notable failure to investigate Mike beyond said criticism, i.e. for another glaring flaw that other creators on YouTube have previously discussed, meaning before Solomon released his September 2025 expose concerning Mike's PhD. Mike's open racism, e.g., scientific snitches, Dr. Mike is wrong about race and biology. In failing to comment on it, meaning well knowing about it ahead of time, Solomon is racist himself, albeit to a white moderate degree. The enemy of progress for all marginalized peoples, MLK, see letter from Birmingham jail, and apply it to trans folk and people of color as part of a larger struggle that white straight men like Solomon Nelson repress. Specifically, the addendum that I wrote today, October 23rd, 2025, added a new section called When Bro Science Beats You to the Punch. To that, white moderates don't challenge fascism and white moderates still don't challenge fascism. Both stress Solomon Nelson's continued inability to critique fascism in his own backyard. R.E. his September 29th expose on Mike Israetel, failing to acknowledge Mike's open race science. Today, I'll be updating said essay to include additional evidence, i.e. following Bro Science releasing their own video, Do You Have Good Genes or Are You Racist? My latest findings conclude that Solomon knows what race science is, but that he pointedly refuses to call out his career nemesis for it when push comes to shove, their rivalry being the goose that laid the golden egg. I.e. Solomon is a broken clock, someone who once critiqued race science openly, but currently refuses to, r.e. despite me having called him out for it repeatedly in 2025. In conversational parlance, he's sold out. When Bro Science beats you to the punch. Today, Bro Science released a video beating Solomon Nelson to the punch, r.e. do you have good genes or are you racist? In response, I decided to add a timeline detailing my own research in connection to Solomon's recent inability to discuss Mike Israetel's openly stated views on race science, supporting biological essentialism and eugenics, effectively making Mike fascist. And here we have the image if you click on it. However, if you try and view it through WordPress, you can't view it at its full size. It actually gets downscaled. This is the full size image, and I wanted to include it, going over it bit by bit. July 30th, 2019, Sean Roden rape case. I distanced myself from bodybuilding. August 5th, 2021, I began my first book around this time, critiquing bodily images of strength in popular media. June 29th, 2024, foreign man in a foreign land calls Mike Israetel racist in their video, The Gym Cell Epidemic. December 16th, 2024, r/YouTube drama remarks on Mike Israetel being a race realist. January 29th, 2025, I comment on Solomon Nelson's bigotries, specifically in my video, White Moderates Debating Nazis. January 29th, 2025, Solomon Nelson asked me for sources. In their comment, for sure there is. I can't say I agree with everything you argued, but I found your perspective valuable at the same time. Could you point me to any resources you think I should clue myself in on? January 29th, 2025, I give Solomon Nelson the sources he asked for, specifically in the Google Docs document, Notes to Solomon Nelson, 1/29/2025. One of the first examples in that document is Mike Israetel saying the quiet part out loud, race science coming from a token Jewish man, Russian expat turned American citizen, embracing neoliberalism really fucking hard. from their now private video, Is Intelligence Really Different Among the Races? January 30th, 2025, Fool Search releases their video on Dr. Mike's Race Science, the problem with Dr. Mike's Race Science. March 29th, 2025, Solomon Nelson denies my claims of his white moderacy, calls me racist instead. In their video, my reply to Persephone Vanderward. I contact Solomon Nelson on June 5th, 2025, letting him know that I became aware of his response and plan to reply. June 6th, 2025, I notify Solomon that my essay response to him is written, but that I'm waiting on collage material before it goes live. June 7th, 2025, I contact Solomon on Discord with the same info. He acknowledges it. June 10th, 2025, my essay on Solomon goes live. I notify him, both in email and on Discord. Specifically, essay number 1, White Moderates Don't Challenge Fascism, Critiquing Solomon Nelson. July 23rd, 2025, Sean the Black calls Mike Israetel a race realist. Specifically in their video, Is Dr. Mike a race realist? Yes. August 1st, 2025, Scientific Snitch critiques and impeaches Dr. Mike's race science. RE. In their video, Dr. Mike is wrong about race and biology. August 3rd, 2025, Philosophator calls Dr. Mike a fascist. September 29th, 2025, Solomon Nelson releases his critique of Dr. Mike with zero mention of his racism, race science, or any of the other critiques I made of Solomon, e.g. genocide denial, i.e. after the UN on September 16th acknowledges genocide is happening in Palestine. October 4th, 2025, I notify Solomon of Scientific Snitch's video. Solomon refuses to cover it, the white moderate card, telling me to instead, i.e. the white straight person with the much larger channel essentially telling the trans woman, it's your problem. They specifically say, hey Persephone, I think you should be the one to do it. I have a lot on my plate at the moment. Might be facing litigation. Basically him refusing to talk about racism, not because he believed he was in danger, but because he didn't want to talk about it. October 6th, 2025, Lyle McDonald calls out Dr. Mike, but not for his race science. Specifically in his video, Mike Israetel admits to lying about his dissertation draft. October 8th, 2025, Solomon Nelson releases his follow-up on Jeff Nippard without mentioning Mike's racism again. Specifically in his video, Jeff Nippard, my former client, has turned nasty. October 12th, 2025, I released my follow-up on Solomon Nelson and company, calling them out for their inability to discuss racism and genocide. RE. Essay number 8, White Moderates Still Don't Challenge Fascism, or Solomon Nelson and Mike Israetel's Racism. October 19th, 2025, I asked Zerk Fitness, and not for the first time, to cover Mike's race science. Zerk, ostensibly a non-white person, refuses. Tokenism. And I say, cover his racism in the comments of his video, The Science-Based Fitness Cult. And Zerk Fitness has multiple videos talking about Mike Israetel and the situation between him and Solomon Nelson and company, but never once mentions Mike Israetel's race science. October 21st, 2025, Lyle McDonald makes a follow-up on Dr. Mike, but refuses to acknowledge his racism despite me asking him to. Specifically in his video, we need to talk about Mr. Mike's Israetel's family. In the comments section, I say, talk about his fascism and race science, where a variety of people respond. Someone says, actual fascist, third position here, Mike isn't fascist. Please stop using the word fascism. He's not fascist in any way as far as I can tell. If anything, he might be a Zionist or Jewish supremacist, but even that I give like a 5% chance. Somebody you dislike doesn't automatically have to be a fascist goofball. So these are the people in Lyle McDonald's comment section, and specifically when we look at this video in particular, just to confirm that it is a real video, my comment has been removed, or it's not up there when I go to look for it. I had to go onto my phone and it shows up on the phone version, but not the desktop version. Something to keep in mind. October 22nd, 2025, Dom Mazzetti of Bro Science calls it like it is, saying, "Denying racism exists is racist. Fucking preach." One commenter says, "Dom is better than the rest of the fitness influencers." Dom, greater than the rest of the fitness influencers, waiting for Dom to join the Greg, Jeff, Solomon, Mike drama. I should host a debate. Dom is not a fitness influencer. He is a scholar and a teacher. Mike versus Mike would be the most insane battle of bro science versus science-based lifting. So, yeah, this is obviously something that other people in the broader community are aware of. And it's something that was brought up in Dom Mazzetti's own comment section. Last but not least, a little side section here. The top 3 videos that pop up when you type Mike Israetel race science. The problem with Dr. Mike's race science, Dr. Mike is wrong about race and biology. Is Dr. Mike Israetel a race realist? Yes. The channel size and age of my channel, Solomon Nelson's channel, and Lyle McDonald's channel. We all have a similar number of videos, but I talk about racism repeatedly despite having a newer channel than Solomon or Lyle's. Neither seemingly discusses racism at all. Asterisk. We'll get to that asterisk in just a second. Solomon Nelson's channel has been around since December 29th, 2011. They have 134 videos. Lyle McDonald has been around since March 27th, 2006. They have 114 videos. My channel, this specific channel, has been around since April 11th, 2014, and I have 134 videos. The asterisk, in this video from October 2018, Solomon refutes race science. Yet despite this, and despite people in the comments insisting that Solomon has a time machine and is somehow attacking Dr. Mike with this video, Solomon has pointedly refused to make the connection despite attacking Mike plenty. He holds back on Mike's racism despite having made this video and others having discussed Mike's racism in the past. This demonstrates Solomon's present inability to hold racists accountable despite mounting evidence. He's a broken clock that used to work, having once known better, but is now keeping quiet. The silence of our friends, MLK put it, referring to white moderates. Here's the video itself, and here in the comments section, one person says Solomon was biologically engineered to be the anti-Mike Israetel. Send this to Dr. Mike. This is probably your first debunking of Mike's ideas. The thing is that Solomon specifically goes out of his way to not connect this to Mike Israetel, despite me having said repeatedly since January 2025, hey, you're not really mentioning Mike's racism at all. And despite that information having been available before that point, Solomon hasn't mentioned Mike Israetel's racism. Various videos have been out long after this video came out, but before his PhD takedown, and I find it incredibly strange that Solomon Nelson didn't mention at least once, hey, not only does his PhD suck in this video where I'm talking about how his PhD sucks, but he's also a race realist. It would have taken 2 seconds for him to say that, and he pointedly doesn't, despite him having made a video in the past. How hard is that to do? And I've called him out on this repeatedly, and he refuses until today, as of me recording this, to say anything about race science in connection to Dr. Mike Israetel, despite the fact that plenty of other people have, which leads me to think that he has assimilated. He has become increasingly moderate over time. The above timeline includes the visual evidence inside a large image file that is high-res but compressed. Below are the bullet points and hyperlinks themselves. And here are all of the bullet points that I just read out, but there are also the hyperlinks attached. I go on to conclude this addendum, writing, to conclude and reiterate, Solomon sold out. He's a non-existent activist who has repeatedly refused to talk about racism and genocide while pushing his own fatphobia, white supremacy, and capitalist apologia, and impeaching my work while he does. After pushing him to talk about Mike's open racism and critiquing him all year, here Solomon is getting outmaneuvered by Dom fucking Mazzetti, who can be sexist and ableist at times. Some scientist, Solomon's myopic investigative work is dubious at best. At worst, he's a genocide apologist who overlooks fascism on American soil and overseas. He lives under a rock because he can afford to, i.e. shoving his head up his own ass. As such, Solomon upholds capitalist realism, furthering objection to celebrate himself, but also billionaires like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. In my opinion, he sucks just as much as Mike Israetel does. So do those who blindly support him. We're in the middle of multiple genocides and rising tyranny at home, you gutless cunts. Grow a spine lest the imperial boomerang cut you down just as readily. And if asking a racist person to stop being racist seems too much to ask, remember that it is possible. Norman Rockwell, for example, became increasingly outspoken about racism over his career, eventually leaving the Saturday Morning Post to make art that pointedly punched up during the civil rights movement, and you may as well give this a watch.
But they wouldn't let him. He had a cushy job creating over 300 covers for the Washington Post, but he didn't like their policies. According to the Post's editorial guidelines, if people weren't white, they could only appear as laborers, maids, or porters, but certainly not main characters. As the civil rights movement was gaining momentum, these restrictions rankled Rockwell, but he made his living from the Post and he felt stuck. One night, he wrote in his journal, "If necessary, I must die doing something worthwhile, a worthy end, not humiliating fear and groveling." Shortly after writing this, he quit the Post and took his illustration skills to Look magazine, on the condition that he had complete freedom to choose the subject matter. His very first major piece for Look magazine was this painting showing Ruby Bridges walking to school under federal protection while racial slurs are scrawled on the wall behind her. I mean, Ruby Bridge has main character energy. This painting documented the rage that some people felt when schools became officially desegregated and the bravery of a young girl. Rockwell went on to illustrate the tragic murder of 3 civil rights activists by Klansmen in the South. No one knows the exact circumstances of their deaths, so Rockwell modeled the painting on Goya's painting, The 3rd of May. The hate mail came in droves. He was threatened. He was called a traitor to the white race. He responded by saying, 47 years I've portrayed the best of all possible worlds. Grandfathers, puppy dogs, things like that. That kind of stuff is dead now, and I think it's about time. The artist of his time, nevertheless, regarded him as a sentimental illustrator verging on kitsch, but Norman Rockwell became quietly radical at Look magazine and carved a lasting legacy with his work.
Likewise, Dr. Seuss was originally quite racist, eventually changing over time to become less racist. RE from Volume 2, Part 1's Greed, Eggs, and Harm. Also, before we start, here's a quick 2-page tangent about Dr. Seuss, just because I can't allude to green eggs and ham and not talk about the man himself. I mentioned those emerald eggs and celadon pork flesh because while I think a great many people, Americans anyways, hate diets, a change in nutrition, standing in as a poetic device for pro-communist re-education at large, is far from impossible. Point of fact, Dr. Seuss himself did it, having once been more racist as a matter of production and consumption, only to change quite radically over time in a more inclusive and accepting direction. While the vast majority of the works he produced are positive and inspiring, Ted Giesel, aka Dr. Seuss, also drew a handful of early images which are disturbing. These racially stereotypical drawings were hurtful then and are still hurtful today. Mulberry Street was written in 1937. By contrast, the much-beloved Sneetches was written in 1961, just as the civil rights movement was well underway. Ted wrote the Sneetches as a parable about equality. By drawing bird beings, he transcended the boundaries and pitfalls of using humans as characters, and allowed all readers to relate to the characters as best they could. On March 2, 2016, President Obama agreed with Dr. Seuss, telling a group of interns, "Pretty much all the stuff you need to know is in Dr. Seuss. It's like the Starbelly Sneetches, you know. We're all the same, so why would we treat somebody differently just because they don't have a star on their belly?" Sure, it's a bit Aesopian, but that's not a negative in my book, literally. Less endearing is the dubious, full-smile endorsement from a token neoliberal like Obama, saying we're all the same is valid insofar as we all have human rights, but we still need to acknowledge that we're not all treated the same thanks to fuckwads just like Obama, i.e. he's a war criminal, war drones anyone, and gargles non-consenting bulls. Still, Seuss looning to eat crow demonstrates that people can change with the times, meaning they stay writable into adulthood, i.e. their work can change. Hence the culture attached to it, Gothic or otherwise. Cautionary arguments about chameleons aside, This would seem to apply to Dr. Seuss, whose later works show an evolution of values and beliefs. Those who knew him believed that if he were alive today, he would have jumped at the chance to be a part of the country's evolving dialogue about diversity and inclusion. While I'm generally a tough sell, and frankly think that many American cartoonists compose the nadir of morality, as far as such litmus tests go, e.g. Walt Disney being a racist anti-Semite, Scott Adkins' decades-long racism and all-around horrible weirdness towards anyone different from himself, Earthworm Jim creator Doug TenNapel's own conservative praxis when interacting with awful chasers soon-to-be divorced dudes like Steven Crowder, Matt Groening's proud middle-of-the-road smug-as-fuck centrism, and John Kricfaluski's pedophilic tendencies reflecting in his art, but also his abusive relationship with underage female artists that he worked with to draw his problematic and nostalgic style. I'm still fair and open-minded, taking artists and their creations like Jim Davis's Garfield and Bill Watterson's Calvin and Hobbes into account. Dr. Seuss might have sucked initially, but eventually became remembered for his anti-war actions on par with Bob Ross and Howard Zinn. That's what really matters, i.e., what we leave behind, that makes an impression and is then carried forward. So many of the dickwads mentioned above canonize their work to deify themselves and become multimillionaires, but Dr. Seuss saw the error of his ways and tried to change. That's important. If Dr. Seuss and Rockwell can change in a positive direction, then Solomon can change in a negative. But maybe, if we keep naming and shaming him, he'll stop using his own swollen head as a personal butt plug. One can hope. My straight white friend, let the scales fall from your eyes before it's too late. And that is the addendum to my essay, White Moderates Still Don't Challenge Fascism, specifically addressing Solomon's racism vis-a-vis bro science. Before we close the video, I just wanted to go through all of my sources one at a time, specifically the sources that are mentioned in the timeline itself. Here we have bodybuilding scandal, problems with the accused and bias against women on my old blog. Policing Bodies, the 80s action hero in Streets of Rage 4 on my old blog. White Moderates Don't Challenge Fascism, critiquing Solomon Nelson on my old blog. The video by Bro Science, Do You Have Good Genes or Are You Racist? My response, Solomon Nelson's YouTube channel. Again, where most of the videos on his channel don't talk about racism. There may be a couple of times recently where he's mentioned it in passing, but as far as I can tell, there's not really a lot going on except for this one video. Scientific Racism Debunked. And this was 6 years ago. And since that time, Solomon Nelson has pointedly refused to pretty much say anything about Mike Israetel and his racism. They talk about slander, they talk about me and what I said, specifically that according to Solomon, I'm racist and I'm fascist. They talk about muscle failure, but they don't mention anything about Mike Israetel's race science. Here's Solomon Nelson's PhD critique, specifically of Mike Israetel's. Here again is Solomon Nelson's video on Jeff Nippard, my former client has turned nasty. Here is Lyle McDonald's channel, which has been around for a long time, and there is absolutely no mention, as far as I can tell, anywhere regarding race science and critiquing it. They talk about optimal hypertrophy. They talk about training to failure. They talk about Mike Israetel is losing the plot, but as far as I know, that's about drama that isn't related to race science. And if you go all the way back to the beginning of his channel, there's no mention anywhere in any of these thumbnails or in any of these video titles about racism. So that's dubious. Specifically, this is Lyle McDonald's video, Mike Israetel admits to lying about his dissertation draft. So again, no mention of racism. And if you look at the comments here, there's nothing here that seems to talk about Mike's racism either. So not only is he not addressing it, but the people commenting on his channel don't mention it either. Here is the video we need to talk about Mr. Mike Israetel's family. And you could see that my comment has about Mike Israetel's fascism and race science has been removed. So that's kind of suspicious. Nobody here is talking about said race science. My comment, as far as I could tell, was the only one that discussed it, and it has been removed. Also, incidentally, I talk about racism a great deal. White moderates still don't challenge fascism. Bad Empanada calls for genocide. Calls trans, plural, and furry folk useless eaters. Transphobe Bad Empanada goes mask off. If we scroll down, you can see even more comments about racism specifically, but also genocide. Prohibition and genocide are here. Fight back no matter what. Reading my research on Carl and communities' racism. My first essay, which specifically was critiquing Solomon Nelson, talking about transphobia, complicit token people who are bigoted in a variety of ways, being anti-sex work, tokenism, queerphobic, racist, talking about the racism of Karl Jobst. Karl Jobst is racist in 2025. And if we go back here, white moderates debating Nazis. Critiquing Golden Era bookworms. Bodybuilding has been dying since the Golden Era, where I talk about their white supremacy. I talk further back than that about Nazi apologia. Westside Tyler, Survive, Solidarize, Speak Out. Critiquing August the Duck. Critiquing Bad Empanada again. Critiquing my own grandfather, who is a Holocaust survivor who incidentally believed in free enterprise. The reason he didn't join the Nazi Party was because they had socialist in the title. So I'm not afraid to critique anyone. Me critiquing the State of Israel, Justice for Palestine. Me critiquing Judas Priest, Invincible Shield and Zionism. Fascism in video games. Marxism in space. This is something that my channel, especially recently, has critiqued for a relatively long time. And then me talking, of course, about the Gothic before that, Metroidvania, the study of horror, Silksong, long before the game came out. And if you keep going back, it gets more and more sci-fi oriented, but David is Milton Satan from Paradise Lost, so that was from 8 years ago, and eventually all the way back to talking about alien isolation under the microscope, talking about how I had hepatitis C, talking about Prometheus and Frankenstein and similar stories that date all the way back to Mary Shelley's original novel. So I've always had a left-leaning perspective, and I've always been relatively open about talking about bigotry. The Gothic talks about bigotry, fascism, racism, what have you. We have, again, white moderates debating Nazis. We have notes to Solomon Nelson, where one of the first things I mention, again, is Mike Israetel saying the quiet part out loud. RE, is intelligence really different among the races? Solomon Nelson's reply to me. Essay number 1, moderates don't challenge fascism. Essay number 8, white moderates still don't challenge fascism, or Solomon Nelson plus Mike Israetel's racism. Mike Israetel race science. The problem with Dr. Mike's race science, Dr. Mike is wrong about race and biology. Is Dr. Mike Israetel a race realist? These are the first 3 things that pop up. After that, you start seeing other stuff. But these are the first 3 videos that pop up, at least for me. The problem with Dr. Mike's race science, again, by itself, they actually don't have very many videos. But their most popular video by far is the one about Dr. Mike's race science. Then, of course, they have scientific snitches. Dr. Mike is wrong about race and biology. If we click on it again, we can see it is easily the most popular video on their channel, whereas their other videos have, under 1,000 views, maybe a couple thousand views. The highest viewed video they have, aside from Dr. Mike is Wrong About Race and Biology, appears to be Training Volume is Overrated, 28,000 views, whereas Dr. Mike is Wrong About Race and Biology has 143,000 views. So, their most popular video. Sean the Black is Dr. Mike Israetel, a race realist. If we click on this, they have a variety of videos aside from that. And all of them have, a similar degree of views. Most of them are under 20,000 views. They fall between 10,000 and 20,000 views, with the exception of the commodification of the Black identity. That video has 168,000 views, whereas their video on Mike Israetel, if we scroll up to it, has about 22,000 views. So apart from a couple other videos on their channel, TikTok AI Blackface is Worse Than You Think, and the aforementioned commodification of the Black identity, the most popular video on their channel is Dr. Mike Israetel, a race realist? Foreign Man in a Foreign Land. This is a bigger channel, so it has, over 200,000 subscribers. And that video in particular does comparatively well to other videos on their channel. It has almost 400,000 views. Here we can see it. And then Zerk Fitness, who, as far as I can tell, is a non-white person, where I say cover his racism. If we go to his channel, he has a smaller channel. And there doesn't appear to be any video by them where they talk about Mike Israetel's race realism. Instead, they talk about covering up the PhD roast, and that's all that they talk about. There's nothing in here that talks anything at all about racism, which gives tokenized vibes from Zerk Fitness. That's just my opinion, but as far as I can tell. Race realist Dr. Mike Israetel still collabing with YouTubers and streamers. So this, again, was 10 months ago, December 16th, 2024. Dr. Mike Israetel is a fascist. r/Behind the Bastards, 3 months ago, on August 3rd, 2025. Solomon Nelson's video from 6 years ago, specifically October 24th, 2018. Scientific Racism Debunked. A younger, more principled Solomon Nelson. So yeah, these are all of my sources. It's encouraging to see that somebody with a larger channel is talking about the racism in the bodybuilding community, especially just in light of all the racism that's happening domestically and abroad in regards to, capitalist realism, Donald Trump in the White House. So even bro science talking about racism in the community at all is better than saying nothing, which is exactly what Solomon Nelson has been doing, what Lyle McDonald has been doing regarding Mike Israetel. You think they could say something about him at the very least, but they won't. They refuse to. Solomon Nelson is someone who is keeping quiet so that they can keep growing their channel on YouTube, which is a white supremacist platform, structurally speaking. So hopefully with this video, Bro Science, maybe Solomon Nelson will actually say the quiet part out loud, will critique Mike Israetel. He has a perfect chance to, finally. If I can't get him to do it, because I'm just a trans woman with a tiny little channel, I'm a little communist, maybe someone like Dom Mazzetti of Bro Science can do it. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? In any event, thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it informative. I hope it changes your view on things. If you don't feel the way that I do presently about this, maybe I said something or shown you something that would change your mind. In any event, thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe out there, and good luck.